Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. I made a video a couple of days ago about Zuffa Boxing, which is the new promotional outfit that have signed to Paramount Plus for 12 shows a year. And this is fronted by Dana White of the UFC, and it's largely funded, mostly funded by Turki Alalshikh, who a couple of years ago was being seen as the saviour of boxing. Not that boxing ever needed saving, it was doing just fine. But, you know, he'd certainly, some of those Riyadh season cards were extraordinary, astonishing. Talk about, you know, what they call it, speculating to accumulate, throwing a lot of money at something, getting people's attention, and then you become a major player. Recently, Alalshikh was cited as being #1 in the top 50 most influential people in boxing, and that was a poll compiled by Boxing News, the trade paper in the UK. I wouldn't argue with that. I think he's probably #1. But the purpose of Zuffa Boxing is to stage sort of in-house bouts without going towards any of the major 4 sanctioning bodies, any sanctioning bodies. And there is talk of there being a Zuffer belt, promotional belt or something. And essentially what White and presumably Alalshikh want is a sort of in-house UFC style model where they control everything, and the fighters are just, pawns on the chessboard to be moved around. Okay, so you can make of that, from a moralistic point of view, what you will. But the WBC head honcho, Mr. Mauricio Sulaiman, someone who is frequently criticised, not least of all on this channel, especially when it comes to rankings and, the WBC. Certainly Mauricio's father, Jose Sulaiman, his relationship with Don King was extremely close and rather, shall we say, controversial. Mauricio himself has been, criticised heavily, especially when it comes to there being too many belts in boxing. It's all sanctioning fees. But in fairness, and looking at it objectively, the WBC do some good work. They look after fighters who've hit hard times, who've suffering from what they now call CTE, or punch drunkenness, if you prefer. And I mean, they do some good stuff, the WBC. Well, Sulaiman commented on Dana White, Alalshikh and Zuffa Boxing, and he said, "Boxing is the sport of the poor in the world, a global sport with a huge platform, including many international promoters, hundreds of regional ones. Okay. Boxing has managers and advisors who negotiate the best deals for their fighters, and that is how all boxers who step into the ring have their best interests protected. So it is not, as I said in my previous video, it's not a coincidence that White would like to see the repeal of the Ali Act in the United States, which prevents, managers and promoters from being, in the case of Don King and Carl King, father and son. Although someone in the comments did point out, well, what about Frank Warren and George Warren, or Francis Warren? I mean, absolutely true. But of course, we don't have the Ali Act over here. This is the United States we're talking about, and White would like to see that rolled back. And Sulaiman has he wants to distinguish boxing as a free enterprise rather than a corporate-controlled entity, such as the UFC. Okay, so he went on to say, boxing is an open competition market for boxers to choose from the best options available. Therefore, boxing has eradicated exploitation and abuse of power. Well, I wouldn't go that far. There's plenty of exploitation and abuse of power goes on. But yes, compared to, the days of Frank Carbo and Blinky Palermo and, the mafia involvement and so on and so forth. Yes, I mean, things are much, much better. But we didn't just get off a fucking banana boat. We all know that there's still plenty of underhanded shenanigans go on within boxing. In other words, we're not daft. Sulaiman does say a boxer is a dignified human being, not merchandise to be used to enrich just a few. Well said, Mauricio. I like that. Boxers put their lives at stake in the ring and deserve best care and protection and must be respected, supported and appreciated. Absolutely true. Again, can't disagree with that. Cannot disagree with that. Now, White has been very vocal. He's not the only one, of course. Many people have said this about organisations such as the WBC making lots of championship fights for all sorts of trinket belts, which get you a ranking, but, you know, the international belts, regular belts, interim belts, all this crap. Yeah, there are way too many belts in boxing, no argument. And White and others have been critical and called it a racket because of you get 3% sanctioning fee with every purse. And if you're talking about, say, Canelo versus Crawford, I mean, what's 3% of whatever the purses were, 100 million or whatever, you're talking some considerable amount of money. And in fair, again, you know, we have to be objective about this. White has promised, we'll see if it comes to fruition, that Zuffa Boxing will promise improved minimal purses, bottom level purses, and make sure all the healthcare is in place and so on. Although this remains to be seen. I mean, I haven't read the fine print, the small print, whatever you want to call it. But drug testing is another thing that will have to be looked into. And yeah, well, it remains to be seen. I mean, because Alalshikh is the one in charge and not really White. White is the front man. If you've seen Squid Game, you'll know that White is the front man, the character in that show, and then behind the scenes you have Alalshikh, who's the real boss. But I love that show. Anyway, I mean, at the moment, the WBC has Olympic-style drug testing through VADA. But not every organisation has that, of course. But what's their drug testing policy going to be? Are they going to be proactive in resisting, I think it really is a sort of, it's epidemic, isn't it? Failing drug tests and people cheating in sports, not just boxing. And Sulaiman actually rejected the idea that boxing is not in a great place. And I agree with him on this as well. I mean, he talks about Usyk, Crawford and Inoue, 3 undisputed champions. You've got undisputed champions in the women's game, which is growing exponentially. So yes. I mean, I agree with 60, 70% of what Sulaiman said. Probably 70%, maybe even 80% of what Sulaiman said in this statement. And to me, as with anything else, I'm a show me guy. If White and Alalshikh and Zuffa Boxing want to show that they are fair and that their fighters will get a fair share of the cake, okay, go out and prove it. Go out and prove it. You know, don't say it, do it. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, what do you think? Who do you trust anyone? I mean, I don't really trust anyone, but in terms of words uttered, I would be on Sulaiman's side for the most part. But again, it's up to White and Zuffa Boxing to, prove that they are worthy, as far as I'm concerned, as it is with anyone, with any new organisation. It was with Hearn, it was with Ben Shalom when he came along. You should always say, I'm a show me guy. Proof is in the pudding, etc. Show me what you got. Anyway, if you have any thoughts on this, please leave them below, and I'm looking forward to reading them. And please, if you did like this video, hit the like button. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe, because we've got plenty of videos for you, and spread the word about Joe Stunner Boxing. Thank you very, very much, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your support, and bye for now.